Why is it easy for developers? It's because if we take, for example, the iPhone example, you've got one piece of hardware, one set of specs to actually be able to do something by. So developers, in some instances, quite like that. It's easy to design to. If we perhaps look at another smartphone marketplace, and potentially our older Windows marketplace in terms of Google, it's the place of broken dreams. I talk to developer after developer after developer goes, I've developed an Android app. I go, really? Yeah, it does this and that. I go, you developed the one? And they go, oh, okay, well, I developed it 7 times. Because I had to develop it for 1.6, 1.8, 1.2.1, and there's 3 different form factors in my market I also have to develop for. That's a problem. And it's a problem that Google need to solve. I hope they don't, but it's a problem they need to solve. By giving a consistent set of hardware form factors, and by actually working with our OEMs to say, this is what it's going to look like, this is the resolution. It means we have a choice of devices, but makes it easy for you guys to develop to. Any Windows Phone 7 that comes to market, you are going to have an application that you have to write once. And that's compelling. What else do I like about the Windows Phone 7 in the marketplace and application development? I really like the fact that we stand up and go, guys, when you develop an app on our platform, here are the rules. Before you start, please write your app. And if perchance it doesn't quite meet those criteria, we're going to go back to you and say, hey, didn't pass, here's the clause, here's the area you didn't pass. Please fix it, send it back to us, it'll pass. I like that kind of transparency. That cuts your development costs. That makes it easier to know what you're building and how to build it. I like that transparency. What I like about Windows Phone 7 development, and what I particularly like about it in New Zealand, is I can very proudly say that we have a local team on the ground that's going to help you guys build applications. The gentleman who's looking after developers for Windows Phone 7 is a guy by the name of Nigel Parker. You may have seen him in the keynote this morning. He is absolutely tasked with making sure that we have a successful ecosystem in this country, making sure that we have content that is practical, not only for the local scene, not only making applications for New Zealand, for New Zealanders in here, which is only good for us, but also too, is being able to actually work with you guys to make your application appealing to a wider and more global market. Nigel and I have been on phone calls, and what is great about that is the fact that we are going to have local control over what applications actually appear in the marketplace. So a New Zealand-based company being able to affect what's happening in New Zealand. Now, I know you say, that's pretty good. And it's quite compelling, but that local sense to me, I think, is so important, I think, for developers. And I like the fact that we have a guy that you guys can email or ring, and we can help you out there on the ground. So I'm only going to take a few minutes before I bring on Ben, because I do want to leave time for questions at the end. But the thing I really want to drive home is Windows Phone is something you should be absolutely looking for in a development platform. It's exciting. We are investing heavily. We're also investing to make sure that we have people on the ground who are measured to help you be successful. And I'm excited because, damn, I like using this phone. Thank you, and I'll hand over to Ben.
Hey guys. So quick hands, who came up to my 3 o'clock session? All right, cool. I don't want to go over too much again, but just to reiterate, I don't work for Microsoft. I'm not being paid to be here. I do review phones on TVNZ Breakfast every 3 weeks. So in the past 2 months, I've had hands-on with, I use the 3GS as my main phone. I've had hands-on with the iPhone 4, Samsung Galaxy, Nexus 1, Milestone, a couple other Androids, little LG Android, this sort of stuff, Xperia X10 and Mini Pro. And I've spent weeks with each of those phones, and I'm now using the developer version of the Samsung Taylor. I've been using it for about a week. And it is the phone that comes closest to ever competing with the iPhone. And it does actually compete with the iPhone, and I love it, and I love using it. And what's more important is I love developing for it. I find it a really, really fun thing to do as opposed to a task or a chore. I taught myself Objective-C, and I don't ever want to go through that pain again. So I'm going to take you through the marketplace. Basically, how do you as a developer or as a development company make money out of Windows Phone? It's basically the bottom line. So we're going to look at what's in it for me or what's in it for us as developers. And then, because it's the whole idea of a isolated marketplace for Windows Phone is new. You know, the Windows Mobile marketplace is there, but it doesn't stop people side-loading applications. So we're going to look at some case studies of a very similar marketplace. You know, for a device that starts with I and it's a phone. I'm going to show you how you sign up on the marketplace, how you submit an app, what's important when you're submitting an app, how you market an app. Okay, so how you're going to sell as many copies of your app as you can, and what makes a good app as well. Okay, so why would I buy your app? Okay, so what's in it for me? It's pretty straightforward. 70% of every dollar you make selling your application is yours. That's it. You get a check at the end of every month for 70% of the total sales. If you sell 100 apps for $1, you're going to get $70. It's pretty straightforward. There's some tax stuff around there, but you know you can deal with that. It's pretty standard if you're self-employed. So it's the same going rate as other marketplaces out there. So what does that mean? You know, it's like a double rainbow. What does it all mean? So it's 70% of what you sell. Okay. So sales depend on a few things: how popular your app is, how big the market is, so how many phones are out there in people's hands. So we don't know that at the moment. We've heard some rumours on the gadget sites. There's a rumour about $1 billion that Microsoft's throwing at this to get it out there. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't work for Microsoft. So what we're going to do is we're going to make some guesses, and we know that the device will be popular. You know, I love the device, and if me, you know, as an independent gadget reviewer, if I'm going out there saying this is the best phone, then you know all the other gadget reviewers will be doing the same thing. Look at the Epic Engadget review. It was something like 3,000 word Engadget review of the Windows Phone prototype device, beta firmware. We've got newer firmware now, which is better, and they picked what three things out of it. They had no copy and paste, and they had no Twitter client. And apart from that, they said it was pretty damn good. And that's for a version 1 product, it's pretty amazing. So let's look at a historical example. These numbers, like I say, are sales of a familiar phone we know called the iPhone. And I'm going to look at what happened. So the App Store launched when there were about 6 million iPhones on the market. Okay. Now, you can do a sort of a maths in your head about the size of the market and how many phones Microsoft is going to try and push out there. But I wouldn't be surprised if we're up there after a year or less than a year. Okay. So, you know, if you get your app in the market now, it's just going to ramp up. So example 1 is a little game called Chopper that was on the market on day 1. Okay? A guy called Magic Dave Frampton from Wellington, wrote an app called Choplifter back for the Mac 2, I think it was, and he slowly ported it across. You know the app, that game where you go and pick people up and drop them off places and you shoot people down? Yeah, so he ported that to iPhone, reasonably rudimentary. He did used to do graphics for weather, so it's a little, reasonably nice looking game. You shoot tanks, you do stuff, okay? So he sold reasonably rapidly 350,000 units. He started at $8 US and eventually dropped it down to keep it in the top 10 in the marketplace, okay? So you do the maths on that. Even if you take the bottom number, see if you sold every one of them for $1, okay? That's US dollars as well. So he's made 240,000 US dollars off that little pokey app, okay? So again, we don't know the exact numbers of Windows Phone. You can do some maths on that, but as you see the Windows Phone sales ramp up, you can start to think about what does that mean for me as a developer. Example 2. Towards the end of that year, a guy called Ben Gracewood downloaded the Xcode development tools and taught himself Objective-C. Wrote a little game in about 2 weeks of nights. Reasonably a sort of missile defense game. Okay, a month of nights rather. I made $3,000 from that. So no big chops. It was good. It was helpful money, but it wasn't a big splash. So I'm being honest here, right? So it definitely paid off the time I spent on it. Absolutely paid off the time I spent on it. Okay, example 3. Christmas 2008. when the floodgates opened and Apple started approving fart apps and flashlight apps and all the other stuff that they started approving. Okay, iFart developer, there was a headline, iFart developer makes 40K in 2 days, all right? And that was before he sold, on his blog he said he sold 38,000 units on Christmas Day. So he was having Christmas dinner, watching his stats tick over. You know, so 38,000 US dollars, 70% of that was a good Christmas present. Okay? And what he did there is he from the outset publicised his sales numbers. So as soon as iFart got approved for the App Store, which he was surprised by, he started to actually blog and say, look, I've sold 3,000 today, 4,000 tomorrow. And the gadget blogs and the mainstream press eventually picked up on it and started reporting his numbers, which spurned it on even further. So it's an example. If you can think of developing a local app and say Kiwi App Maker makes good on Windows Phone App Store, get it in the Herald, you know, stuff.co, you know, Geek Zone, that sort of stuff, then, you know, that's a good way to get your app out there. Talk about it. Wrong phone, wrong computer. Okay, so the App Store now, you know, we're talking 40 to 60 million iPhones, so it's a scale, you know, beyond, but we're talking probably 2 or 3 years, or maybe even 1 or 2 years out, if Windows Phone is popular. Some guys down the road in Newmarket called Cactus Lab, they helped out Tap make Camera Plus. So they made, you know, between them, $250,000 in a month, and what they did with that is they actually did a promo with a pro photographer to give away $10,000 worth of camera gear with this camera app. So you think phone cameras don't compare to a Canon 5D Mark II that they're giving away, but the whole phone form factor allows people to be a bit more serendipitous with their apps, and you know, this app allows you to do silly things like you know, do a tilt shift on your photo, or make it look like an old-fashioned photo, or develop it like a Polaroid. And so there's opportunities there to do different kinds of apps and market them in different ways. Okay. So given that, there's some money to be made. I'd say there's a lot of money to be made, you know, especially being in the App Store on day one. And as we go through the year, as more and more devices get out there, it's important to be there. So how do I get there? It's pretty simple. I get the right one? No, it's number 1. There's a website called developer.windowsphone.com. Okay? You just go there and you click on register for the marketplace. Okay. Now, if you're a student, it's really awesome. Basically, you have to have, if you can get on the DreamSpark, or any student can get on the DreamSpark program, and the registration becomes free. So that's really, really cool. I don't know if there's any students in the room, but it's good. Otherwise, there is a $170 including GST fee for the year to register. So it seems like a bit of outlay, but the developer tools are free, so there's no cost there. And beyond that, you know, if you sell 100 copies of your app, which would be almost impossible not to, at $2 a pop, you've made your money back. So it's pretty simple. So you need a live ID, you need to read an agreement and basically fill in your details. What will happen is you put all your details in there, and part of that is they then pass off to GeoTrust, who verify your identity. And they'll do that by calling you they'll look you up in the phone book and then call you. So they'll say, okay, we know that I sign up as Ben Gracewood. They'll find you some other way, from other information you haven't provided, and then they'll track you down and, you know, check you've got a cat and make sure you're a real human. And then they'll tell Microsoft, yep, this guy's good to go, and it'll carry on from there. Now, there's one little trap, which happened to me, was I went online and registered as a trading as name, because we've got a personal company, but it doesn't make sense to have an education-based company, which my wife's company is an app developer. And that caused a little bit of friction in that they couldn't find the company name anywhere, they couldn't find a phone number related to it. So I had to go and find a notary public to sign an affidavit saying, I am who I am a director of this company who is trading as this other name. No big drama, it only took about 2 extra days. And so now I'm registered. I can sign in. Okay. We'll leave, if that's going to take too long, I'll leave it and go back. No, there we go. Hope there's no crackers that are tracking my key presses. And when I sign in, you'll see the progress of my application and how it works. There's one step I haven't done yet. Okay, so see on the top left there, publisher identity verified, that was the first step. That was the one that took about a week because there's toing and froing, and I just had to get a verification. Normally it can be done in 24 hours. Primary email, that's just basically click here to approve this email. And then the eligibility for payout, this is very similar to the iTunes App Store, and I looked at this, it's the same thing with the iTunes App Store. You have to basically have a text declaration that says, I'm not in the US, but I am in a country that has a tax treaty with the US, so please only deduct 10% tax and I'll deal with the rest. If you don't do that, they'll deduct 30% tax before they pay you. Now, Nigel was mentioning there's an option there where you can actually, I think you can submit a W8 that says, no, just deduct me at the full rate, because especially if you're working as a sole trader and you're already being taxed at a 33 or 39% tax rate, it's almost easier just to be taxed at 30% and pay the small amount extra to the IRD in New Zealand. So it's up to you. You can decide, or basically you can nominate a rate you want to be taxed at, but the maximum they'll take is 10% if you correctly file the thing. Yep. 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 It's not Microsoft, it's the IRS basically, the tax treaty with New Zealand and America. Yeah, but you'd have to pay tax on that in New Zealand anyway. So, yeah, correct. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. So the cheque will be minus tax, and then you can work out how much extra you have to pay to the IRD here, because everything you make on that app store is taxable income. So you don't have to deal with that as an aside. Yep. Should we leave them to the end? Should we ask some tax questions at the end, or? Yep, cool. So if you've got any questions on that, come back to me. We'll just go carry on. So within the portal as well, we can see, there's an app there that I've created. We'll come back to that later on. But also, if you go to the account, you can see device registration. So this is where you can see developer devices that have been registered against this account as well. That's just an information useful thing there. You actually register the device on your PC. You run a small little app that comes with the developer tools, and there you go. So there's one device there that I registered not long ago. So I basically plug it in, run the app, type in my live ID and password, and it registers into here. And that lets you then load and debug apps on your device rather than on the emulator. That's the step you have to do. So yeah, I'll answer questions about the marketplace and stuff at the end as well, and tax and all that sort of stuff. So you want to build an application and submit it. The first step before you even start coding is to read the application policy guidelines and the content policy guidelines, because the last thing you want to do is build an app and have it rejected because the app itself is invalid. So like Mark said, if they reject, they will tell you exactly why they've rejected it. But if you're building a hate speech app for some reason, or a porn app, it will get rejected and there's no way you can fix it, right? This is what I'm saying. So you just have to be sure that the app you build is going to be acceptable under their policies. That's pretty straightforward. But the other thing is, as you're building your app, the policy guidelines actually have set down in stone requirements for speed, okay? How fast the device loads, how fast it resumes from tombstoning, so the app, sorry, not the device, and how long the splash screen stays there for. Compatibility, does it work with landscape keyboards and portrait keyboards? Because the device, that's the minimum thing on the devices. You can get devices with keyboards. Stability, does it crash? Okay. The content policy guidelines don't just cover obvious. So the store is an R13 store. Think of it that way. Okay, so they're not going to allow through R18 content at all. But if you build a bikini app, which is allowable through, and you try and sell it in the Middle East, it will be rejected. Okay? So the content policy guidelines apply to areas as well as overall. So that's something to think about as well. But you can then say, fine, untick the Middle East box and then resubmit, and it will go through. So things to think about before you build your app. And again, we can go through those. I've actually got the PDFs on my other laptop, which I can show you there at the end of the speech as well. I'll have a look at the policy guidelines again. I'm not sure if there is, but I'll have a look. So So you've decided your app is okay. It's going to be allowed in the App Store. Okay. And remember, in those content policy guidelines, there's nothing there that says if it mimics one of our apps, we're going to reject it, or if it does something we don't like, we're going to reject it. Like the whole Google Voice thing in the Apple App Store, you're allowed to do that as long as you can do it within the APIs and within the content policy guidelines. Then you're okay. So as you build your app, there are some things to be careful of. Okay. So there's some core XML files that define your app and what it does. There's the app manifest, which basically is just what is my app, what version is it, what is its name. Then there's the Windows Mobile or WM app manifest. One of the important things in there is the capabilities of your app. What is it going to do? Is it going to access the file system? Is it going to use GPS? Is it going to be able to make phone calls? Because you can pop a dialer up. And you cannot and should not cheat on those things. So you can be guaranteed that if you put in, I'm not using the GPS, when you submit your Zap, Microsoft will do a static analysis and look for the libraries in it and what's called. And if you say, geolocation provider.start, and you don't have I'm using GPS and the capabilities, it'll be rejected. The reason for those capabilities is when you install the app, when a user installs the app from the marketplace, it will list them and say, are you happy that this app will use the GPS, access the file system, and make a phone call? And the user says, yep, I'm cool with that. So. Well, yeah, exactly. The response will be paragraph and line of the content policy or application policy where you've failed. No, they'll just reject it. So, yeah. I imagine if you do it 20 times, they might start to think, well, I'm not going to let this thing through, but I don't know. The WMAP manifest also defines the start page of your app. So when you first create an application that says main page, don't be locked down to that. You can use anything you want. An important thing there is also that the size of your final DLL is impacts a lot on the start speed. So if you have about 20 XAML pages in your main project, it may be slow to load. There's nothing to stop you putting 19 of those XAML packages in another project. It'll all package into the same ZAP, but that first DLL load will be much, much faster. So, yep. So performance, important. Performance is in the guidelines. So think about that the whole time you're building. Use threads, use asynchronous. It's Silverlight, it's all very asynchronous. So then when you come to submit your application, you need to talk to your designer about artwork. So along with the artwork that's inside your application, so your splash screen and icons and that sort of stuff, you need to submit some artwork along with the application. And basically you have an icon for and I'll demonstrate this to you in a second, for the sub-program menu, the main start screen, and then you need icons for the marketplace. Okay? And this last one, Windows Phone Marketplace Panoramic Background Art, is optional, but there's a very good reason why you want to include that, especially if you've got a really, really cool app. Okay? So then you can submit your application, and I'll show you how we do that. Okay. Let's go back. Basically, you just add a product, add application, at the top right there. Let it wake up. Excuse me. Okay, so you can give your product a name. I imagine this will change when the App Store goes live. It will change to Windows Mobile, Windows Phone 7. Okay, and the platform will go away because that whole differentiation between devices is gone. And then you choose your market. Okay, so there's your list of markets there. That's your primary market, and you can choose additional stuff later on. I don't think it'll let me proceed if I don't add anything. But basically, you can see across the top there's descriptions, information, artwork. Yeah, so it wants me to produce everything. But that's where you'd upload your artwork, all that sort of stuff in there. The catalogue details, how you want it, what description you want in the marketplace, all that sort of stuff. So it's just a wizard you walk through, and then it's done, and then it'll be in a status of pending review or whatever. So if anyone, who has submitted an iPhone application before? 1, 2, yeah. So it'll be very similar where you submit your app and it basically sits there, and it'll probably do some standard static checking first. Is it signed? Is it all good? Is there a ZAP file included? Are all the JPEGs included? Is everything ready? And you can't go past the step until everything's prepared. And then once it's prepared, then it'll go into the review process, and you'll see it going through there. I don't think there's, Mark, has there been any timelines put on how fast they'll review? I don't think they have, but no. But they're hoping to make it a lot faster than what we've experienced before. Yeah. Well, I haven't followed this through completely, but I do believe you can select multiple markets. So there must be another point where you can do it. And again, this is all built around Windows Mobile at the moment, so it'll be updated for Windows Phone before we go live. So, yep. Yeah. Well, the one thing they say is don't obfuscate the code because they will do that for you. So. But yeah, I don't think Microsoft's going to go out there and steal people's ideas. It's too much of a risk for them. So yeah.
Sorry, just following up on that. I think obfuscation provided by marketplace. Does that mean also the signing of the
Yeah, so that's why when you, I believe so, again, I don't know for sure, but when you register, it creates, the whole GeoTrust thing is to create a certificate that lives on their server. So as far as I can tell, there was no requirement for me to download a certificate to do any signing like you have to do with the iPhone App Store. So I'm hoping that they hand that all off, which would be nice as well, because that's always a bit of a dog for iPhone as well. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate why artwork is important, why I said that panoramic background was very important. So for users, when they use the phone, they go and visit the marketplace to buy applications. Okay, marketplace here. So the first thing you see is that there is a featured application there. It's the first thing that gets hit when the user comes in. These are all demo apps, so they're obviously going to be more interesting when they, when the real apps come out. And that background is some beans in a supermarket. So that background, even if we go through every other part of that panorama, so the lists and everything else, is the background for the featured app. So it's really good to get featured, right? You get sudden free advertising across the entire market, the first level of the marketplace. And that's, that smaller icon there is a smaller icon you have to submit. And then you go into the detail and there's a larger icon there, shopping list, okay? And screenshots as well. Okay, so tap on a screenshot to view it. Go back, okay? So you can see why, if you want to be featured, if you think you've got an app that's good enough to be featured, you want to include that panoramic background. Otherwise, I don't know what they probably put on, something black or boring or someone else's panoramic background, I don't know. Okay. I'll get into that in a second. Okay. And there's some other featured apps in there as well, but they're not the ones that have the full background. So, the point there is it 3? It's 1, isn't it? Yep, 3. Getting featured is awesome, right? It's probably the be-all and end-all. And this has been proven in the iPhone App Store as well, is basically, if you can get on the top 10 or the top 20 even lists in the iPhone App Store, it's basically a ticket to print money. We're talking 5,000 to 10,000 sales a day for the top 10 in the iPhone App Store. And everything below that is a massive long tail, and you really have to work hard to get decent sales out of that. I think we'll be a little bit better in the Windows Phone App Store because there's multiple ways to discover apps. It's a bit more depth to that panoramic marketplace thing than just a list of top 25. But getting featured is still going to be really, really important. So how do you get featured? How do you get up there? Tip 1, as Mark said, don't tell anyone else, but Microsoft New Zealand has a hell of a lot of influence in influencing the featured apps for the local marketplace. So make friends with Mark, buy him a beer. I'm 3 beers, and buy Nigel some beers as well. Show them your app. Give your app out to your mates who have their phones as well, and get them to play with it. And get them to say, "Man, this is awesome." Tell their friends, and just get Microsoft some buzz around this. Microsoft New Zealand, because everyone wants to feature, good apps. The same thing happens in the iPhone marketplace in New Zealand. When the marketplace first came out, there was a gentleman's rule that everyone in New Zealand who knew you, so there's probably a group of about 50 iPhone developers in New Zealand. There's Dave and there's a guy in Christchurch and a few others, the Cactus Lab guys. And the gentleman's rule was, as soon as they announced their app, you were to buy it. Everyone else in the cabal was to buy it, which would pump the sales up, and you get a beer in return, right? Next time you see them, and you're also to review it. Review it honestly, but because getting reviews in the store is important. So we need to do the same thing, right? We need to have a community. There's the LinkedIn group. We need to get together, help each other out, and review each other's apps, and big each other up. quite often, yes, correct. The featured apps are regionalised, definitely. So there's nothing stopping a New Zealand app getting featured in the US, but it will only do so if it gets into probably the headspace of the US App Store people. So, do you have influence? Yeah. Yep. I believe so. Again, we'll find that out when it's finalised. So, other than being featured and talking to Mark and buying him a beer, how do you get good sales in your app? Okay. In marketplace is important. So that imagery stuff I talked about, and the wording of your app. So if someone's sitting on the toilet browsing through the marketplace, and they say, they will, trust me, and they're reading your app review, they're not going to buy an app that says, oh, this is an okay game, right? It's your CV, right, for your app. And you're taught about CV writing in high school, hopefully. You use words like best, exciting, hours of fun, if it's a game. If it's an app, it's effective, it's fast, it's accurate. It's the most accurate to-do app, or it's the most effective to-do app on the marketplace. Use those emotive words so when people read that description, they get really excited about the app. Reviews are important, and then also you'll live and die by reviews. So that star rating you saw on the application, on the marketplace, prominent, the first thing someone sees when they tap on your app. So you really want to get away from those one-star reviews, but you will get them. So, Chopper 2 came out, brilliant app, and it's had like 25 five-star reviews, and there's one-star review there. Some idiot saying, oh, crap app. And that brings them down to 4.5 stars. So don't sweat that stuff, but you want to get 4 stars, 5 stars to be able to be featured or to be, when someone's listing things by popularity, they want to see those things. Okay? No. Everything will be rated. So there's also the try-buy demo, which is unique to the Windows Phone marketplace. So Apple have just tried to ape this by having a trial list. All that is all the stupid free versions of the 199 apps. You still have to uninstall and install the full version, whereas Windows Phone has a full-featured trial API, which I'll show you now. Okay. Which one? That one. Get with me. So it's really, really simple. Basically, I've got a page here, if I look at it in design mode, that has My Sweet Game is great, right? And the thing I'm going to do is say there's 2 levels to this game. There's level 1, level 2, or there might be 30 levels. And that if they hit the trial button in the marketplace, they will install the app, the entire app, but only level 1 will be available. And then if they buy the app, which I can push them to do from within the app, I can have a button in the app that says buy this game, and it will push them out to the marketplace. They can run through the buy process. They'll have a credit card loaded, and it'll all be really simple. When they come back, it'll be unlocked. So how do we do that? It's basically one line of code. Okay, so there it is there. If is trial mode, then disable the level 2 button and turn on the buy button. Okay, so at the moment it's in full mode. It's going to boot up. I'll leave that to boot up. It's in full mode, but there's an option here to simulate. You can see that line of code in green. Simulate trial mode. I can turn that on, and you need to remove that before you submit, but you can do that. Okay. The guide is part of the XNA Framework Gamer Service namespace. There's also a Windows Phone Marketplace namespace, but both of them do the same thing. Is it booted yet? No. Say again? What did you say, sorry, if you want today? Yep. No. Yeah, so the first, what you do there, for a time-based trial, in the very first run, you would save an app setting or isolated storage date time. And every time you load up, say, if it says trial and it's less than 30 days from that first run time, then let them go, and you can have the full functionality. But then from 30 days afterwards, you can cancel that basically and stop them running the app. So uninstall and reinstall the app, I think. So, but there must be a way to sort that out in the final version. App is running. Okay, there we go. So this is in full mode. It's working fine. And then uncommented that simulate trial mode, restart. And that's trial mode. Okay, so it's a really simple idea. But you can imagine how you could extend that out. But yeah, you're right, the time-based trial, there isn't a particular option for it. I don't believe there's options for subscription or in-app purchasing in this release of the marketplace, but we might see it in the future. So, use the try or buy thing is another way to do it. And make the most of your window of opportunity. This is a new platform. Your app is new. It's exciting. Get in there. So elsewhere, social media, join the New Zealand Windows Phone Developers LinkedIn group. Tell everyone else about your app. Get everyone to try it out. Go on Twitter, Facebook, everything else. Advertise your app like it was a company. Demo videos have been reasonably successful with iPhone. People getting excited, especially around unique functions. Okay. Word of mouth. Tell your mates. Tell everyone else. There's been some reasonably good results from review websites. There's actually review websites entirely focused around iPhone apps at the moment. So I imagine there'll be some that emerge around Windows Phone 7 apps. Advertising hasn't been effective. So paid AdSense, that sort of stuff, the experience we've had in the iPhone marketplaces, it doesn't really work. Because the amount you pay for a click for a 99-cent app or even a $5 app is not really worthwhile. Okay, but the key point is great apps, fantastic apps will sell themselves. So the best apps do bubble to the top of the App Store, and it is actually a lot more democratic than other things we've experienced. Like if you go out and build a database or build something else, you're going to be competing against some pretty big players with lots of advertising money, including Microsoft. But in the iPhone App Store, what we've seen is even the big people like EA and the big companies are getting outdone by small players who are moving quickly and doing really cool little apps. So remember that. The thing that makes a fantastic app, design. Listen to August. Listen to about natural user interfaces. Do it right. Do it right first time, so your first reviews are great. Okay. Speed is really important. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some apps on the iPhone that pass and fail in these areas. Okay. So some of my favorite apps that I use every day. So speed is an example. Okay. I love this poker app. Let me just check something. Yep. This poker app called the World Series of Poker app at the top here. But I almost want to throw my iPhone out the window when I want to play it, because I'm in the middle of a game right now, in the middle of a poker game with some computer players. But when I start this app, okay, other way up. Okay, it knows I'm in the middle of the game. The app knows this. It loads. It plays me the developer's video or the producer's video. And then it plays me an intro video. Right? I can skip it by tapping it. And then it takes me to the main screen. Okay, yes, I want to carry on with I want to do the Legion career. And then it says, oh, you've got a game in progress. I know I've got a game in progress. It says, if you can't read it, it says, resume your game in progress. Yes, I do. And then finally I drop into my game. Okay? The only reason I persist with this game is that it does what August loves, the natural user interface stuff. So, for example, I've got 6s and 8s there on the flop, which is pretty good. So I can drag my chips all in. Nope. If I just want to bet all my chips, I can just drag them all in, and I've gone all in, right? And likewise, well, I won that, but if I wanted to fold, I could drag my cards away. See that? I just throw them away. So on the next deal, it knows it's a touch screen. God, I don't want to fold that. A king, queen suited. Do I want to fold that? I will, just for you guys, right? So you have to understand the pain this is putting me through. I just throw those away, and I folded, right? Ah. Right? So I put up with that app because it's a really great app. It looks good. It feels good to play. I love hate those cards. Flick them away. So do that stuff in your apps, but make them start faster. So an example here, flight control in the middle of a game. Tap that. This game is dead. I've forcibly quit it. Look at that. How quick it started. Oh, continue. And the game's running. Okay. I can bail out of it. I can forcibly quit it using this stupid iPhone metaphor for multitasking. And I can go back in again. And it's back in there straight away, really, really quick. So that is much, much better. You can see the difference between those two, night and day. And this is the sort of thing that will actually be tested by the application guidelines. So if your app, I imagine if your app does what that poker app does, it will be rejected by Microsoft being stupid. So be aware of that. The second thing I'd say is, in terms of great design and good apps, is don't be afraid of sacred cows, okay? Now, sacred cows are things about the UI that seem to be gospel and seem to be important. So if you haven't used an iPhone, an example is, in the calendar app, for example, see that list? It's pretty standard. It's a standard list all the way through, and you'll see the headers there. As I move them down, the Friday comes down, it pulls down, and then the Thursday pulls down, okay? Right? And that's a pretty standard list. And what it also does is the list bounces off the top, okay? Now, an example of a sacred cow that's been broken by the Twitter app in a good way is this list. When I scroll it, it bounces. Let's go all the way down. Sorry, I got a lot of tweets in there. So this list bounces off the top. You can see that, right? The bounce, and that's a standard list behavior in Windows Phone and iPhone. Sorry, but there's something there when it bounces. What is that? I pull it down, and it says pull down to refresh. This is in no other app, or it is in other apps now, but it was never in the other app. I pull it down and release it, and it stays there and loads the next lot of tweets up. That's been so well received that they've open sourced that behavior, and it's now in a whole lot of popular apps. So that whole list pull down to refresh thing is now available to a lot of other apps. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see Apple put that in there as core UI in the next few versions, because now in the Apple email app, I find myself pulling down to refresh because it's so natural. But it's not Apple's doing, it's someone else has done it. There's nothing stopping you doing the same thing with Windows Phone apps. Likewise, in this Reader app, which is gorgeous, what they've done is they've taken that same header option. You can't really, can you see it there? Yeah, so the headers they've styled and they look like torn off paper and they're half transparent. And they still come down, okay? So they've taken a kind of angle on the list headers. And also, watch the top of the screen where it says no SIM and the clock at the very top there. It's the status bar, which is kind of a very sacred cow. It's a very sacred area of the iPhone OS. But if I refresh, they grab it and say, fuck it, I'm going to use that. That's the area that no one else is using, right? And it says syncing unread items up there now. And I don't think you're going to get rejected for that sort of thing because it's just so well done and it's so unobtrusive. And it just works really well. And you can actually tap on that dot and it slides out of the way. Okay? So, sacred cows. I'll show you what I've done in the app that I wrote for Windows Phone. It's a wee example of that. So in this Tours app you saw in the keynote, I thought, well, when something's downloading, because what you can do is you can download these tours, I want to show a download status. Where do I want to put that? Well, you know about the application bar. So if I go into a tour that's available, that application bar there down the bottom, you see that? You can pull up and down, and it's got buttons in it, and it does stuff. Right, that's just kind of a grey bar that's 72 pixels high, I think it is, and sits there. This page has no application bar, but if I go back to a download tour one, bear with me, back into the app, I need to improve my loading time in this app, right? Because I just killed that app and I've come back in. It's my next thing on the list to do. If I hit download tour, okay, well, it's got an error there. What I do is I actually bring up a thing that looks exactly like the status bar with a progress bar on top of it. It just sort of sits there and chugs away, and I think it's quite a nice way of doing that stuff. There's no buttons on or anything like that. It's kind of modal. But it's not as good as the things that have been done on the iPhone, but it is a sacred cow that I'm just saying, look, I want to play around with that area because I think it's a good area to use. So that's something to think about. And the reason I said that is because I realised that a lot of the apps I love on the iPhone are apps that do go a little bit further than just the stock UI, but to use the stock UI in a way that relates to me. So they don't go so far out that I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. So that's pretty much where I wanted to leave it, and we've got time for questions. But what you saw is, what's in it for you? 70%? Less tax, of course, but you're going to have to pay that tax at either end, so it doesn't matter who takes it off you in the first place. We saw some case studies, right? So pimp your app, pimp your phone, trying to make as much money as you can by telling everyone about your app. How do you sign up? Easy. How do you submit applications? Be thorough and accurate when you're submitting your applications, all right? Don't cheat. Don't try and get around the guidelines. Just work with them. Market your app. Don't pay for marketing. Just do it yourself. And think about your design. Okay? And then from here on, developer.windowsphone.com is your go-to place. Go there to download the tools. Go see the other Windows Phone sessions. Stick around for questions if you want to. And have fun. I've really enjoyed developing with Windows Phone. Like I say, much more than I have with the iPhone. There's some other content up there. So questions, fire away. So there was a question about... Yeah. The question was, do we have to pay GST on apps sold outside of New Zealand? I believe no, you don't, because it's sold out of New Zealand. There's no GST on international sales. Questions? I don't know.
Don't know.
Who is the app
We
reviewed
mean
by
the
this question?
review as in reviewing an application to pass into the application's marketplace, or review we think it's nice?
My understanding, not being a Microsoft person, is a combination of two. So there'll be some script stuff to check for basic things, and then there'll be a person that actually runs the app and reviews it. There's a few tricks there as well, like when you submit an iPhone app, you need to, if it's got a password and username on it, like a Twitter app, you must submit a password and username with it. And the same thing will happen here. So you're going to have to set up a crap Twitter app username, a disposable one, for the reviewer to use. They'll act like a robot. So, sorry, the question over there, the section. I'll have to find that one out for you. I remember it actually came out because Apple have been a bit crap on that. I could be wrong, but I thought I read a blog post saying that Microsoft would handle it, but don't take me on that, so I'll have to find out for you.
It's a good question, though.
Yeah. Yeah, possibly. Sorry.
There's always going to be cases where people are going, for whatever reason, I had a case where my 8-year-old went berserk on my iPhone, which I'm sure Visa liked, but I wasn't so happy with. Now, an email back to Apple, and it was refunded. It was like they had no blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So they did. So there's always going to be cases where people will sometimes,
Yeah.
We'll have a way to deal with it.
Yeah. So question. Sorry, I'll go behind you first, and then. Yep.
Yeah, when you sign up, what developer tools do they allow you to?
You don't have to sign up to download the developer tools. You can just download the developer tools and code away, build your app, get it absolutely perfect on the emulator. The reason you'd sign up is to be able to code on and debug on a device and to submit your app. But you can just download the tools. You don't have to give your password or address or anything. So. Visual Studio 2018 Express, which is fantastic. I just did a session on it earlier on. It's just, you probably don't even need a full version. And Expression Blend, which is, again, a brilliant app. So, yeah. Sorry, just in front of you. I don't believe so. So the question was, is there a restriction in gathering user stats? You'll need to tell the user you're going to use the network as part of the, one of the capabilities. But beyond that, I don't believe, if they see, their data target is being hosed, they'll probably get upset. But if you're just pinging up a 10K thing...
It would likely also say that it's going to collect personal information and send it. There'll be something along those lines of... Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Because it's a privacy issue.
Okay. Is there a desktop interface for browsing the marketplace? So iTunes have just recently created a web interface. The interface for desktop is the Zune client. Okay. So I can show that to you in a second, or you can come up and see it if you want. So basically, that's it's the Zune. So the Zune client you can just use for watching videos and listening to your own music. But when you plug a phone into it, it gives you phone management, synchronization, and it gives you the marketplace on there as well. So, like iTunes. So, yep, it's free.
At the moment, I gather there's not a lot of competition with apps, games, and things like this, but once this development tidal wave starts, how are you going to market yourself with 50,000 other people doing exactly the same thing? Won't your app get lost
Yeah, so the question was, how do you stand out from the crowd, I guess, when there's 50,000 apps in there? I mean, it is, there's not a lot you can do there. The same thing's happening in the iPhone marketplace. There's 300,000 apps now. And there are cases of, and the question is coming up, why would I develop an app with no guarantee of getting money back? I mean, it's probably the same as why would you build a website? Why would you build a website that no one might
The people
visit?
that developers hate hiring, you have to hire marketers.
Yeah.
That's why I have a job.
You talked earlier,
I'll go bang, bang, bang. You first, and I'll go.
you talked earlier at the start about the fragmentation problem with Android. What's the stop that's happening with versions of frameworks using here? And for example, on hardware, next year NFC becomes the flavor of the month when you want OEMs to put the NFC in the handset. The same fragmentation risk is still on the roadmap.
Shall I answer that?
I'll grab that one. It's always possible, but in terms of how we're planning the roadmap into the future, it really is about those three core pillars that I talked about. So one was the end user experience being a primary pillar. So we're going to be conscious that doing stuff which makes life hard for the developer is going to make life hard for the end user. So by us keeping very strong to those end user tenets of an end user experience, which has got to be consistent and easy and fun. Also with the hardware, we want to make hardware consistent because it actually works to our advantage. But two, by being consistent around hardware, yes, if new things come along, we are going to, we want to enhance it for an end user experience, but also too, we've got to be mindful of what's happening in the past. And Microsoft, I think, has a very good record of backwards compatibility where it makes sense. I wish I could give you a really concrete answer that no, we're never going to do it, but we're always going to look at ways to improve.
What I'd say is I think you'll find it's much more similar to iPhone than Android, where iPhone, the iPhone OS, the iPhone 4 has a front camera. No other iPhone has it, so there's no front camera API for the previous phones, but all the apps, or most of the apps, run on the previous phones, and as a developer you can target a version of the OS. So there's two things. One is the hardware requirement is a lot more locked down than Android. It must be 1 gigahertz, must have a 5 megapixel camera, must have GPU, must have a capacitive touchscreen, must be 480 by, all this sort of stuff. So it's going to be much easier for them to upgrade the OS on those first run of apps. When the next, when the NFCs and then the high-res screens come out, we'd hope that we'll get similar upgrades for the older phones, but newer SDKs and newer APIs for the new phones.
Yeah.
What about the scenario though, where you have an OEM manufacturer that decides they want to get a first on NFC hardware and handset, and they want libraries for developers to use on the framework? What happens there?
Haven't come across that yet.
I'll probably have to pitch Microsoft to do it, I think. So then we were back then.
There is a point where we're going to have a lowest common denominator. Here are the stats that developers can write to. If there's enough volume there from a hardware manufacturer, then maybe there's some call that specific people. But you can still do a baseline where it would work on all, but would take advantage, like you said, like applications which work really well on iPhone 4, work pretty well on a 3GS, and completely crap out on a 3G. Yeah. Okay, that kind of answered your question. That wasn't before. And then. Sorry, I missed the question.
How much does it cost for manufacturers?
That's actually a discussion between the manufacturer and Microsoft. There's a whole pile of commercial agreements. It's something we don't release publicly. So.
I can help with that one.
YouTube and that one.
So there's two things. One is because of Xbox Live on the phone, as a side effect of that, it's almost as secure as an Xbox. So each phone will have an individual certificate in it. And this is driving the XDAdevelopers.com guys mad, but it's great for anti-piracy. So basically they can't unlock the binary files that are out there and put them on any phone because the phone has a hard-coded certificate in it. So it's going to be pretty damn good. And the other is, as a developer, you can only sideload. I think they've just restricted it to 10 apps. So even if you get 10 apps from friends and you're stuffed, you have to be able to take one off and put another one on. Does that answer? Cool. So. Yeah.
So at the Australian Tech Ed last week, if the Telstra application was demonstrated that would be potentially loaded onto a phone, that would appear in the start page. As an end user, you have the option of saying unpin, thanks very much. I don't want that kind of stuff. It's still on the OS, still doing its thing, but you can unpin it from being, I don't want a dating app on mine either. I don't believe so. That's an operator.
Well, it can't run in the background anyway, so
Yeah.
Sorry, there was a. Sorry, does that answer your question? Is that enough? There was a question here next.
Yeah, this is for the phone platform. Is there going to be these apps available on like a tablet
That's a bit. Do you want me to answer that one?
Yeah.
The pattern of record is that the Windows Phone OS will be as a phone OS. There was one down here, and then you. Yeah, it wasn't. Yep.
On Android phones,
Yes.
they actually download a file that's tied to your Google account. So switch phones, just like your Google account, all your apps just get synced down.
Yep.
All the list of all the
Yep. It's tied to Windows Live ID.
I believe so. Yeah. So you have to have.
Yep.
Well, you may. Yeah, I don't think it'll resync, but the purchases should stick. So if you
Your
re-download
purchase
them.
history, well, you might decide I don't want that one on your phone. I mean, I've been reflashing my Windows Phone 7 weekly. I mean, I'm using test apps, but yeah, it kind of remembers that I've already bought it, and that's worked for me on my test apps. So.
One of the problems I have with all Windows Mobile is that you get a new phone, and then after a while you get a new version, and of course you can't buy a new iteration of the operating system to Flash. So is there going to be a similar kind of thing? So you buy version X from Vodafone or Telecom, or you have to locally, and you kind of lock to that version and never change it.
So we'll be announcing at launch what the update process is, but to kind of simplify it without getting me fired, there'll be a process whereby features may be added at a later date and updates to that OS.
And if you can sort of extrapolate from the fact that they're incredibly restrictive on the features of the hardware, so that even a Samsung, HTC, and a LG and whatever other phones there are, I don't even know which ones they're going to be, they will all have to have the same minimum specs. Some may go faster and have bigger cameras, but you can imagine why they might do that. Whereas Android, there's no real minimum spec.
Yeah. So if you saw the Windows Mobile, you might get I don't know, I'm just picking one out of a hat, HTC HD2, that really big, huge thing. And the Telstra version might be completely different than the Singtel version, which might be completely different from the AT&T version, and we can't do a single update because they're so customized to that operator that it would just mess with everyone's world. Windows Phone is taking that end user experience so that updates and things like that can be pushed out across multiple operators, multiple things in one go. I think we probably have time for one more question. Yes.
Your app is simply an alternate application to support your main subscription-based website. How does the marketplace play? Do you pay Microsoft for your subscription?
So you could make it a free app. It's free to download. Okay, you've got a restriction of I think it's 5 free apps on your thing. So that's the way to basically stop crapware, stop fart apps and flashcard apps and stuff. As many paid apps as you want, only 5 free apps, and that free app anyone can download it. And if you've got a username and password field in there, as long as it has been checked by the review, the review team, it'll work. And there's no, not going to clip the ticket on it. It's fine. What you do is when you upload your app, you provide them with a username and password that will work, and then you just delete that username and password once the app's been approved. Yeah.
Thank you.
Come up and ask us a question if you want.
We'll be here for a few more minutes. Come up and ask a question. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.